Welcome to the WA Property Q&A, the podcast where I explore the ins and outs of buying property in Western Australia. I'm your host, Peter Fletcher, and each week I interview local property experts to help you to develop a deep understanding of the nuances of buying property in WA. From market trends to legal considerations, no topic is off limits. But before we dive in, a friendly reminder. While we provide valuable information, it's important to note that nothing discussed in this podcast should be construed as personal investment advice. Always remember to seek the appropriate professional advice for your specific circumstances. Now, let's get started and unlock the secrets to successful property buying in WA. So welcome to the another edition of the WA Property Q&A podcast. My guest today is one of the real estate industry's, I'm going to say, rising stars. And Chiara is the founder of Green Gurus, is a senior sustainability consultant, is a buyer's agent with owning her own agencies, principal director of Community West Real Estate, and is one of the newly minted members of REWA Council. So congratulations on that, Chiara. That's a huge effort.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited about the appointment. And just helping like you are with through your episodes, sharing information with fellow colleagues in the industry, and also hopefully, people who either rent or own their own homes or investment properties. Just sharing information is really important. And I mean, 27 years in real estate, you've been around maybe a bit longer than me. Yeah, I think, it's now time to give back. My passion is also quality homes that we should all be living in. I've gone down the road of learning for the last 15 years in that sustainability space and doing a master's in sustainability studies, primarily around housing, but also around corporate social responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what dragged you down the master's path? Because that's some serious study there.
Especially as an adult learner who didn't go to uni, right? So,
Right.
I mean, we've been delivering education workshops and I've learnt how to become an educator myself. And I suppose my pathway was I owned my own real estate agency at 26. And prior to that, I was a director with a lovely colleague of mine. I decided I wanted to become a property developer. So where best, I found Curtin University. There was a number of really important courses in the Curtin Business School, which I felt were of high caliber, and I really wanted to do it. So, as a licensee, what do you do next? Can sell real estate, can build a property management round, but I actually wanted to get into property development. So it was actually 2 years into my 3-year degree / master's, because it was turning into a master's for that they actually had to secure a overseas lecturer to fly them in to actually present on this thing called green buildings. Now, this is 2006. So here I am sitting in the room going, what is he talking about? Because I didn't quite even cotton on at all prior about efficiency. I knew quality and what wasn't, because, of course, we represent properties and value add that. But, the green building, the niche market that was coming, Peter, Australia had just really started to embrace just the Green Building Council over the East Coast, had just started their efforts in the commercial sector. And my heart and soul is residential. So I thought, wow, this is a niche. What do I have to do now? And I jumped across the walkway to the humanities department and they had just set up. So again, funny thing how life works and luck. They had just started a new Curtin University Sustainability Policy Institute. And in fact, some of the leading West Australian, if not national professors, had moved over from another university to Curtin. And I was one of the first 10 students in that new department. And I finished off my other degree and coupled it with this newfound knowledge and went, this just makes sense. Money as well.
Mm-hmm.
Why is nobody doing it? After I got blessed with 2.5 years of doing a master's, I needed to help the real estate sector onboard them on this journey. And so I've had different roles in that seat. So I've been the head of sustainability at a very large, one of West Australia's biggest apartment builders.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, we're a developer and builder all in the same house. So it actually was timely to actually step in and change their whole way that they were designing and building. My role there was just to help get them started on a 3-year journey, as well as help train their selling agents and marketing crew about the points of difference and how to value add that off the plan, and also, of course, when they were finished.
Mm-hmm. What year were you at? You mentioned 2006 is when you started. So you were in, when were you in humanities in?
2010, 11 I finished.
Okay.
So 2008, 9, 10, and then 11. So it was 2.5 year around for that course. But I was intense. I did intensive. I was doing 4 units every semester, but also running a ship. And when you do solo as a sole trader, you take on what you can with your clients. So it worked.
I've also have a fascination with this whole idea of sustainable homes, and I kind of think that they're sustainable homes, and we'll say that for want of a better word, is they're just more comfortable homes. Is that fair to say?
It's absolutely one of the most important aspects of a better designed, energy efficient home is that they're actually more comfortable to live in.
Mm-hmm.
And this is primarily those living areas. It's not just, it's not your bedrooms. It's where you live most of the time with your partner, yourself, your dog, or your family.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that sort of orientation in terms of its design. And then, of course, it's the building materials that, and how insulated it is. And if obviously you've got natural sunlight when you need it most, seasons that we need it most, and protecting the heat coming into the house when you don't want it, which is peak of summer. So it's simple design as well as some improvements in the building materials that really makes that home comfortable.
Talk us through what are those design principles that would make a home more comfortable.
So, and let me just add to the comfort. So there's 3 main things I point to. So there's comfort, which ultimately delivers a more livable home. But there's also the reduction in cost from turning on your heating and cooling. And also, if we were to go to through a list of things for a new build, it would be about design. So, your orientation, where you place your main zone living areas, where you place your glazing. So glazing a window is really, really important. How big that is and where it's placed, preferably not in east or west. But of course, when you're living on the beach, it'll be west facing glazing. So it's how do you optimize that? And then, of course, it's a whole range of things in terms of the building materials. So you've got your insulation properties. What building materials do you use that suit that climate best? And then if you look at the mechanical system, so, you've got also some big ticket items in terms of your energy demand, which is your hot water systems and your heating and cooling systems. So if you get the design right, that's the first step. 7-star home is a winner. 6-star is the minimum standard. But if you can get to 7 or even 8, depending of the cost benefits, then that's a good start. The next thing is, of course, what do you actually bolt onto that house to make it run the way you want it with the hot water system? And, of course, your heating and cooling systems, your insulation in your roof and also in your walls.
Let's talk mainly about established residential, because that's our bread and butter. That's what we play with most times. So somebody is like one of your clients is walking through, or you're looking at a property for, like somebody who's going to live in the property.
Yep.
What are the things that you're looking for that would make it a more comfortable, more livable home?
So things that I can see and things that I can't see but I start with the things that I can see. So it's that orientation of the living rooms. Where is north? So where's that natural sunlight coming from?
So north-facing living areas, like top of the was.
Absolutely. But there's a whole segment of our built form, residential, that is not orientated correctly.
100%. Yeah, it's almost impossible to get it. Well, every now and then you will get it, and it's just luxury. But
rezone rooms, right? So you can knock out walls and sort of rezone rooms to retrofit. So the retrofitting space is really exciting. So that's basically fixing up what we've got.
Yeah, retrofitting is like it sounds great, but it's very expensive. No.
I think you've got to put expense into perspective because, and it depends on who you are. What is it for? Is it for you and your family? And you're going to live in it for a long time. So like you would a renovation or an addition or whatnot, you'd figure out what you can afford. But inserting some of the basics first. So with an existing home, it is primarily insulation and draft proofing that I go for first. That's a low, medium hanging fruit.
Okay.
And it's low, medium cost depending on how big your roof space is. And draft proofing's easy, right? Especially in the older homes.
Is it?
Yep. You just have to go to Bunnings and get some draft proofing and spend a little bit of time to put the draft proofing material in those wooden doors or sashes. So, and around your doors, your door frames and the like. So that's something.
We have a 1950s home.
All right.
I would say that it leaks like a sieve.
In the floors as well?
Probably.
Yeah. There are, in the last 5 years of the last 20 years, there's been a lot of new innovative kind of applications for insulation and also materials to use as insulation. So currently, let's say, for example...
So can I just interrupt there, Chiara? So it sounds like insulation is number one.
For me, it's the big one.
And can I ask, what is the minimum insulation standard?
Well, for new builds, it's up now. Well, it depends on what star rating you want. So if you want a high star rating, you go for 4 to 5 R values. So yeah, if you go into an existing home, get in the rooftop and see insulation there, maybe the house was built in the 80s, it's probably unlikely it's been changed. And if it has, it's only been changed maybe once or twice max. So insulation does degrade over time, right? So you do have to change it up.
Okay.
So yeah.
So how old is old insulation that needs to be changed?
Well, I've been in rooftops, that have had 25-year insulation. It depends too, because what else has been living up there, right? So insulation compacts, over time, and that's what it reduces its efficiency. There's actually another word for it. And if there's other things happening, and then you've got your electrician up there 10 years ago putting
and then trample on it and they rip it apart and remove it. And
there's issues with that too, because there's fire issues with putting insulation in around those. Those downlights are a big boo-boo for me, and it's very easy to retrofit. But
so I did, as you know, I did one of your courses. In fact, I've done 2 of your courses. I love them so much. I'm a huge fan. And after the last one, I thought, right, I'm going to replace the insulation in our roof because it was like 30 plus years old.
Yep.
And replaced it with, I got the people around and they gave me a quote for R4, and I thought, it's not quite going to do the job. And they go, well, it's X amount extra for R5, and it was substantially more. Yeah, it was substantially more expensive for R5. And then he said, but you can go for R6 for only a little bit extra on top of the R5. And I went, well, let's go for R6. So I've
sure you weren't being sold. Sales can always be sold too, right?
It's because
he might not have had it in stock or something. I've never heard of that before.
I don't know, but anyway. We ended up with R6 in our ceiling, and R6 is I don't know, it's about 300 mil thick, and now when you get up in our roof space, it's just like you cannot move up there, like you literally cannot move. And I wish the next electrician that steps into our roof the best of luck.
Wow. Yes. You have a choice. You made a choice. I don't think you need to go to that level, but I ask you, going back to your question about comfort or your point around comfort, because that's number one.
Yeah.
Cost savings come a little bit down the track.
Mhm.
Have you felt, or maybe you haven't been through a full summer yet?
We have.
Okay, so
Yes.
what's the difference been for you? Has there been?
I think there's a difference. I don't know whether it's me trying to justify spending, I think it was $4,000 or something
Yep.
on
Depends
insulation.
on how big is.
And ours is a small home. Well, I think we got stitched, but anyway.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, look, it definitely serves its purpose, because it basically prevents that heat load coming into the house, and also heat from shifting if it's in winter too. Don't forget that.
Yes.
Have you got ceiling fans? Because they are magic.
Yes, ceiling fans. So that's something else we installed following your
Good.
course.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. In fact, ceiling fans actually do add a part to the star rating. So if you're wanting to retrofit or do an extension to a home, and you need to retrofit the front as well, you need to look at the whole house for its star rating out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
So the fans do play a part for that star rating as well, because they actually do physically change that comfort level. So I bang on about insulation. There's also insulation you can actually have retrofitted into walls that are east-west facing that need it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you need a little bit of a test of your walls for the heat gain in the peak of summer to actually find out if it is actually worth it. But you can. And Sid too, who's I call him a resident architect of Green Gurus, he's been collaborating with us for over 10 years now as a guest lecturer. He is also a registered architect, but he does a lot of retrofits and renovations, extensions, and he thinks it's a wonderful option for homeowners, fixing what you got before you start to really put an investment into your extension.
So there's other ways of protecting walls from the sun, and that is like putting some sort of like screening from the sun.
Yeah, an awning, or you can do fancy things these days. But to be honest with you, trees are ideal, and of course, water-wise gardens. So you've got beautiful native gardens around Perth, and it's really been, there's been a lot more focus. So consumer awareness has gone through the roof in the last 5 of my 15 years in this space, and I'm, still potentially considered a newcomer.
Yep.
There's veterans that I work with that have been trying to, affect change around energy efficiency and smart design for much longer than I have. But I have noticed quite a big difference in awareness and people opting in to improve their energy efficiency before they even put solar on the rooftops, because it's a no-brainer, right? You reduce your demand to optimize your investment in that solar. Now, we talk about payback periods. So solar is what I call a bolt-on, because it's bolted on, doesn't add comfort, of course, but it does reduce that cost ongoing. But you need to get the house right so that you don't need to turn on systems to then optimize that solar. And then you put a battery storage in, and then it's ultimately a good thing. But payback periods these days for 5-6 kilowatts is around 2.5 years, because it's gotten so cheap. So that's something that I think has become a bit of a norm now. People, nearly 50%, so 49 last time I checked, percent of residential houses in Western Australia have solar PV. That's almost half. That's huge. And government could probably do more with their stock to look at ways of optimising and putting solar, if you like, but probably getting their houses probably better, more comfortable as well. So, yeah.
So my brother just had solar installed. He's an electrician.
Oh, yeah.
He's had solar installed on the roof of his home. And I phoned him up. I said, Tim, what do you think? And he said, complete waste of money.
How big did he go?
Well, I don't know. I'm imagining that he went pretty big.
5, but you can optimise it to 6.
You'd have no reason to go small.
House.
Only small. Yeah. And he said just hasn't had any significant impact on their electricity
Tell him to
bill.
call me. I'll come down and have a look. Depends on how far he is around Perth, but I do energy audits, so
Right.
I can go and have a look at his bills. If he can send me his bills, I'll have a look at them
Yeah.
for
Okay.
the last 12 months and just see. And then obviously it's probably best I see the house because there could be inefficiencies there.
Yeah. Yeah. And somebody else that does solar installations, he said that it's probably got something to do with the tariff that he's on.
Yeah. Tariffs have come and gone and changed. I couldn't even point to tariffs. I direct everyone to the Synergy website because every 1st of July something changes, it would seem.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, he should look at peak, shoulder.
So the key point there is that you're saying that like PVCs are just a no-brainer, should be installed on everything, and the payback is pretty quick, or it should be pretty quick.
Cost benefits.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer. PV's photovoltaic systems, I think, have gotten a lot better as well. You know, I always look also what's going to happen at the end of pipe. So, you know, one of my interests in the sustainability field is what do we do at the end of life of all this tech. So that's going to be interesting. The stewardship of manufacturers, even with electric vehicle batteries, you know, they're estimating 10 to 12 years, 8 on efficiency when you start to see that start to go down. So what are they going to do about that to then unplug that battery and then put a new one in?
100%,
what do you do with the old
because at least with a petrol engine or a diesel engine, there was like they've got well looked after. They run for a very long time. Like it's not unusual to see a 15, 20-year-old car driving around.
Of course.
You know, the old Mitsubishi Sigmas, they used to smoke a bit, but, you know, leaving those aside, you know, there's some very old diesel engines that do not have to find their way onto a scrap heap.
My husband converted an old Land Cruiser, which is, I think, 70-something, into a fish and chip oil. So he used to go pick up the fish and chip oil, convert it into biofuel and stick it in his car.
Really?
It did smell of fish and chips as it was going down Leederville, but the streets are Leederville. But yeah, look, you know, those old cars have but we shouldn't just be throwing them out. There's a life on the existing ones we have. And that's that transition. It will take time for us to transition out of, and we shouldn't just throw things out just because the new fandangles have come in to town.
Back to design. You mentioned, so insulation is number one.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned draft proofing.
Yeah, draft proofing for retrofit, easy to do, cheap as. You can actually put insulation under the floorboards. So the older homes that I inspect, you know, you can seal it up. I think also, you know, what you commented on about landscaping is really important, what you put down and where you put it, because it actually will stop heat gain from actually entering the house. I think the biggest issue is the retrofit space. I mean, design's pretty much sorted with star ratings for the National Construction Code. You cannot. There's a minimum standard. Minimum 6. It's not 6-star, and that's fantastic, right?
Aren't some builders fudging the system though?
There is, and I don't get into that conversation because I'm not technically savvy, but I do work with a whole lot of people who know the ins and outs of that. I also work with the CSIRO Energy, I suppose you can call it the department there, who run the NatHERS. We've done some projects together. We've recently done one for the Department of Communities using one of the new pilot tools from CSIRO to analyse the energy efficiency and provide a star rating of existing housing stock. And that's where we're headed. So onboarding real estate agents is really important to get them in the know of how to identify those features. And there's the livability framework identifies 17 features, and I think that's a good number. I know all of them. I assess homes using the livability framework tool, which is actually originally came out of LJ Hooker, developed it, R&D. Then they started to use it across all branches across Australia and New Zealand. And then CSIRO actually bought them. CSIRO bought that particular tool and the data, and they are onboarding and training real estate agents to be able to identify that. But you can do it with our 2-page Green Gurus checklist, which real estate agents in WA can download very easily for free from REWA.
Yeah, that is that livability index, I think it's called, is a really useful tool. It's simple for agents to use. The thing is that I have never seen anyone use it, Chiara. I've literally not seen anyone market a home using that tool. Which I think have you? Yeah.
And some LJ Hooker personnel have.
Which I think is a bit sad in some ways, but I think it speaks to the kind of the lack of demand for livable homes. And it's not that people don't like that they're livable and wouldn't want it if they had it, but it's more like there's going to be 17 offers on this place. You either take it or you don't, and you pay 50 grand more than the asking price and be happy about it. And
sure. But I have to say this, and this is what I say to agents, that if they want to get listings, they're going to know more about the houses that they're appraising, because the seller, if they can value add those features and they can walk through a home with some sort of checklist, even if it's in their head or if it's a 2-page simple form, just in that half an hour or even 15 minutes that we walk through and do appraisals, we need to get them on site. We need to be on the top of the list to be appointed as the listing agent. Now, to do that is to identify points of interest, points of difference, understanding, of course, what we already know. All the real estate agents are all pretty much the same. How do you differentiate yourself? You know a little bit more about the houses that you're actually appraising, marketing and selling to get that listing, and then to be able to sell and value those aspects and then sell those aspects on the price, based on the price to the buyers. 16 offers or 1 offer. You're trying to secure the best outcome for the seller as a listing agent. As a buyer's agent, I actually do my own assessment because I know how to, and that's why I have been continuously and thankfully with the support of REWA, who have been supporting us for like 10 of our 15 years of existence. Prior to that, it was mayors. Mayors across a number of local councils said, Chiara, what do you want us to do? Like, what can we do to help you get more agents understanding and valuing the sustainability energy efficient homes, because we are delivering them. It's part of our policy now that developers or builders or mum and dads who want to do renovations or, subdivisions need to up the energy efficiency standard of the built form. And we need to, make sure all parties are part of this transition. And one of the most important parties, I believe, are the real estate agents. Yeah. So if you want to win more listings, you know more about the product that you're listing. If you want to sell at the market value, you need to know more about the properties that you list.
Is this something that these sales training gurus from the eastern states would say?
Which ones are you talking about?
I'm not going to name names, but I'm sure you can picture a couple.
Honest, to be honest, we are just on the cusp. The Real Estate Institute of Australia have just this week, and I think next week they're presenting on it, launched the new, because one of their pillars is based on sustainability because they see the future coming. They need their member federated states to be aware because that's their job. And then federated states, the other institutes, including REWA, are now fully engaged in understanding that energy efficiency is actually going to be part of the conversation whether we like it or not, because there's a bigger game to play here. So there's carbon emissions from this country that need to be reduced, and a huge amount of it is from the building sector, the built form, of which residential play about 11% of that. So 11% of carbon emissions. So, and those stats were about 4 years old, right? We haven't yet got the latest stats on that, but we need to hit government-induced targets, mandated, and you trickle it all through and down. It rests within sectors.
Can you foresee a day where we will have mandatory NatHERS, and perhaps before you answer that question, you could explain what NatHERS is. But could you foresee the day where we'll have mandatory NatHERS reports on like properties for sale that before they go to the market as part of the disclosure documents? Could you see that?
Yes, I do see that, and I do know it's coming. I'm confident of it, and I'll explain why. So getting back to NatHERS, National Energy Efficiency Rating Scheme. So NatHERS, Home Energy Rating Scheme, is what that means. And basically it is star ratings for new builds. Existing builds currently don't have that requirement mandated. But for since 2011, the Council of Australian Governments all signed up to what was called the Trajectory to Low Energy and Carbon Homes. And there was talk that each state would introduce mandatory disclosure upon sale or lease of residential property to better inform consumers about what the energy burden is, if you like, or the energy efficiency is of that home. The ACT have had this introduced since 1999, and so it's been the longest running globally, and a lot of other countries have already followed suit, where people are better informed, and it's basically not just a better informed consumer, but it's also improving the overall efficiency of the housing stock. Simply by it being identified. You don't have to retrofit it or increase the energy efficiency upon sale or lease, but it's certainly identifying them. Much like, the demolition homes that, you either renovate or detonate, it's going to be, okay, well, this one's less efficient than that one. And there's a consideration. Now, there's a lot of indicators to show that the value proposition of a more efficient home, a higher star valued home, is higher. Domain even got onto it. The realestate.com have their own research hubs, as you know, within their, organisations. And they've done full analysis recent on the value proposition paid at point of sale, even for the general stock, not just necessarily the ACT stock that has been, has had this mandatory disclosure for a very long time, 20 plus years. So the trajectory is still in existence, and I sit as part of the Residential Energy Efficiency Committee, which is 63 odd stakeholders that inform mandatory disclosure potential and other aspects of energy efficiency in that trajectory for residential buildings. And we meet once every sort of 2-3 months on it.
Chiara,
and it informs the energy ministers about how best to go ahead with this.
Can I just say that, are you expecting pushback from real estate agents?
I think back in 2011, I think we even had a big forum on it, Neville Posse. We discussed little breakout groups about what the repercussion would be. Energy efficiency wasn't understood. Sustainability wasn't even a word. There was no training or education at that time. And there was pushback primarily two fronts. One is, will there be a cost burden to homeowners to get it done? And what's it going to look like at end of pipe when we represent it? Is it going to reduce the value of that house? So those two are fair comments, but I say when you look at homes that are already general stock that we have to list and sell or represent to our buyers, they're either going to be detonated or renovated or brought up to standard. So the cost burden there is evident. Do you want your granite bench top for your new kitchen, or, what kind of level of improvement do you want? The energy efficiency aspect is another opportunity to improve with numbers, so it's measured. So you're not just throwing money at stuff. That, if you want to go to a higher stars, let's just say we're at mandatory disclosure, and let's say a whole bunch of houses that we sell are 2-star. They've been rated at 2 or 3-star. This is potentially a really great home to retrofit to a higher standard. When you do your renovation, look at maybe investing a little bit more on your energy efficiency aspects, so your hot water systems or your insulation properties or rezoning rooms, so that you can actually build that up. So ultimately, it's actually better informing what you should actually be doing to improve the house in the first place.
I'm certainly not arguing against mandatory disclosure. I think it's a great idea. The issue I see is that for a long time, I've thought that the compulsory a disclosure statement of some kind should be attached to every listing and every offer and acceptance, so that people know what they're buying.
Totally.
But there has not been the political will to get that done, and so the very few contracts that we see have any sort of disclosure attached
and
to
that
them.
just enhances our risk. We're at risk by being uninformed.
So some agents would say it actually goes the other way, that we would rather not know.
Well, that's changed with fiduciary.
Well, they're saying that there's some things in those disclosure statements that can't be known. One of which is septic tanks. 50-year-old home. I have no clue whether there's septic tanks in the backyard. None.
Be on record.
But they're not.
The Landgate property interest report does work to try and ensure that whatever state knows.
Yeah, whatever the state knows. Yeah, but that's.
I know. Archived.
Yeah.
370. I get all that, but I think looking to the future.
Yeah, look, I think that if you can get this done, or if the government can get it done with your assistance, I think it'll be a massive shift in the collective thinking around residential property, and it'll be kudos to you.
Look, I'm a passionate advocate. It certainly doesn't sit on my shoulders. There's a whole lot of people more important than me that actually are working on this to ensure we understand the cost benefits and the risk. So there's, risk impact statement around that nationally to look at what the pros, cons and everything. I mean, it's not just a thought bubble. This has been going around for a long time. As a real estate agent, I feel if I have the information provided me and I attach it to the contract, I am not liable. That information has flowed from one party to the other, and by law or currently by just because I asked the question or I could look into it or I don't look into it, that information flows or not. So for me, it reduces my risk. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's risk mitigation by providing more insight. Now, one other thing is termite inspections and building inspection reports are a bloody standard, and we all know it. We put it on all our contracts most of the time, 16 offers or not, and they are a standard that consumers expect because it protects their rights. It's written thanks to REWA providing those documents of a calibre of law that, is correct to WA property law. So adding another aspect, and we're not talking a lot of cost here, in the ACT, a report for energy efficiency, to get an energy efficiency assessor in, is anywhere between $200 and $500. Mm-hmm. I mean, the same goes with termite inspection reports here in WA. Depends on how big you are and where you're at in terms of location. But anyway, up to $600, $700, $800 is a termite and building inspection report. Now, as a consumer, I would want to know what the energy efficiency rating is of this house that I'm about to buy. So I'm better informed about what I could do to improve it, or can I compare it with a lemon? Is it a lemon? Mm-hmm. Or is the other one down the road that's asking 20 grand more a lemon? And I'm not going to buy that one if I'm going to have a better, efficient designed home. That's proof because it's been assessed correctly by a trained, accredited energy efficiency assessor, much like the builders that do the structure reports, So
there's going to be someone will argue that in the same way as the seller doesn't do the building inspection, the structural report.
Sure, the buyer does. Pays for it.
Yeah, that the buyer has to pay for the NatHERS report.
Don't know which way that will be in the end.
And it's a bit of a shame, because it's all about professional indemnity insurance. Because if the seller has completes the structural report and something is found defective, the buyer has no recourse against the inspector. And well, yeah, but it's a bit of a shame that somebody hasn't come up with some legislation that allows that.
Spot on.
Bridges the gap.
Spot on, and I would dare say that will definitely be under the lens, because it makes common sense what you've just said, in terms of having some sort of legislative change to regs in terms of ownership or transference of liability or not, But yes, I think that's a really good point to make, and I think that'll all be part of when we do transition. So you look at other countries in the world, and they're already doing this. So ACT are by a far mile on a lot of fronts, in front because they probably have to be, being the capital, the leader. We probably need to get on with it. Now, going back to the Real Estate Institute of Australia and the Federated States, they're all onboarding. Some states are doing a little bit more around educating and informing the real estate members. REWA have been doing this for a decade plus through the partnership with Green Gurus, primarily because I'm a real estate agent and I care, but also I kind of know the point of difference, and I want my other colleagues to identify those points of difference, because everyone's a winner, even them. And that's all about what I was saying before when I started. I love to share. So if I can share some good stuff, I'll share it for the betterment of the whole. It's just my motivation in life, right? We all have, it's not been around money. It's been around learning. And then if there's something really good, a good nugget, I'll share it. So yes, as a buyer's agent, I think we could do better also around the space. And so again, our education workshops are available for REWA members and non-members. You can be a mum and dad and rock up, pay and book.
And I would say to anyone, go and do your courses. I think they are by far and away the best CPD courses I've ever done.
You've been around a long time. That's a big thing to say.
Well, I've done your, the one that you do with Sid, the R
101
and the R codes one.
Codes with Malcolm Mackay, Rihanna Waugh, and Simon Blackwell, all urban designers, architects.
These are just they are seriously good courses.
Thank you.
And
a lot of thought's been, and I can tell you right now, every bloody time we do a course, something changes, like the government's medium density codes, and we've had to rewrite the resource book and everything else. So yeah, we put a lot of time and effort into our course material to ensure it's relevant and meaningful to my fellow real estate agents in Western Australia. And REWA has been amazing. Neville Posey, who, as you know, was in that seat for a long time, 40-something years he was, and of course CEO, he understood that, he's a future, has a future mindset. And it kind of makes sense to improve the quality of our homes, livability of our homes, and let's kind of get the real estate agents in front before legislation hits us across the back. So I think that's really great. And now with the new CEO, working towards potentially, enhancing these workshops and making more of them, available even to mum and dads, because as members of the Institute, that's our bread and butter.
Because a lot of people just don't understand the relationship between the way a window faces and their energy bill, or their choice of hot water system and their energy bill. They just pay the bill and
exactly
they just go, okay, well, it sucks, but I just pay the bill.
But for those that are not, their awareness is not there. But once they do become aware, because they want to actually do something to their end bill, they can't afford or need to start saving, they'll start to look at things like this. So a real estate agent entering the house saying, wow, I've seen you've done some retrofits. You've got a double glazing windows. That, I understand that's quite a high cost. That's a wonderful retrofit. We'll make sure we market that when we list it.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to go, that's probably the only agent that's probably mentioned that We're in the early days of agents getting excited about this sort of stuff. And we're talking about design features. We should know these features. And you've been through our full day 7 CPD workshop. We don't go into technical, my brain glazes over with technical information. I'm not an architect or a builder. But as a real estate agent, we have simplified that wonderful and optimized those sort of features through our content and through that awesome lecturer that we have, the architect, Sid 2, so that people walk away going, yeah, I can talk about that really comfortably. I know what that feels like because I live in a house and I know the difference.
Yeah, so that's interesting you should mention Sid. Like, he is a quality lecturer. Like,
He loves it.
He's very, very good. And
he's also a very good architect.
Yeah. He's seriously good at his craft. I'm just mindful of time. I know that you've got to get out of here and get to another appointment. Once again, congratulations on being elected to REWA Council. It's
an honour, actually.
Yeah, and I believe that you've just had a dinner with your newly minted fellow councillors. And
all amazing people who just, like me, want to share. It'd be great to see more candidates in the years to come. Maybe yourself, if you have the time for it. Again, yeah, I think it's a great opportunity to give back and also help improve, continuous improvement. That's what sustainability means to me. Continuous improvement, everything we do. It doesn't have to be always this environmental green focus. There are those other pillars, the financial and the social aspects. Yeah. So continuous improvement is great. And yeah, REWA definitely do work very hard for consumers who are our customers and, of course, their members, because if their members are better trained, better educated, supported, they're going to do a better job at the end of pipe.
Chiara, if people want to get hold of you, talk to you, find out more about you, what you can do for them, where would they go?
2 places. They can email me info@Green Gurus with an S, GURUS.com.au, or get onto LinkedIn and just subscribe or link in or connect with Green Gurus. There is a Green Gurus, or myself, because I have my own personal viewpoints on things. So Chiara, Chiara, Pacific with an I at the end, Pacifici, always a hard one to pronounce, and I'm cool with that. So yeah, those 2 channels.
Chiara Pacifici.
Well done.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge with us. It's been a real privilege. I know you're very busy, but this has been really educational.
Good.
So
thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. And until the next episode of the WA Property Podcast, this is Peter Fletcher. And that wraps up another episode of the WA Property Q&A. We hope you found our discussion valuable and gained some valuable insights into the world of property buying in Western Australia. Remember, while we strive to provide useful information, it's crucial to consult with the appropriate professionals before making any investment decisions. Don't forget to tune in next week for another exciting episode where we continue to unravel the mysteries of the WA property market. If you have any questions or topic suggestions, feel free to reach out to us. Until then, happy property hunting, and remember to seek the right advice for your personal circumstances. Thank you for listening.